Hello, my name is Carlos Urban, and today I'm here to talk to you about the basics of the Nikon flashes. In this case, I'm gonna be using the SB-910, but the SB-600, 700, 800, 900, 910, I've had all those speed lights and they all have the same functions. The only difference is they have the buttons in different places, but during the video I'll show you in the manual where those places are. For me, the most important thing is that you understand what those functions mean, what they are, and how to make the most with your camera. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have here my Nikon D7000, and you know, this is a camera that is an intermediate camera, so very similar to the D3000 series, D5000, and D7000. They are all very similar. So in some cases I'm going to refer to the camera. I'm going to use the camera to take some basic shots with the flash, so it's really not going to be that important in terms of the functions of the camera. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the camera, okay? Now when I turn, the reason why I'm turning on the camera is it's always best to turn on your camera first and then turn on your flash. Okay, so when I turn on the flash, I'm going to explain to you what each of these things mean, okay? You have, first of all, you have here this thing basically means that it's on. You can see that it shows ISO 200, TTL, BL, and FP. The most important thing here is TTL. TTL is what you're going to be using 90% of the time. TTL means through the lens. I'm not sure why it's called like that, but it basically means that the flash does all the thinking for you. So it will determine, based on where your subject is, how much light the flash needs to provide in order to illuminate or get you the correct exposure. The BL means balanced light. Balanced light basically means that it takes into consideration also the background light. So it will provide enough exposure for the background and for the front. It will also depend on what type of metering you have. If you have a matrix metering, then you know that's the metering where it averages everything out. Center weighted, it will take that into account as well. FP is a function that is not sometimes shown in other flashes. It has to do with high-speed sync. Right now, I have another video on high-speed sync. High-speed sync just means that when you take pictures at very high shutter, you know, like 1/1000th of a second, then the flash does like a lot of mini flashes in order to illuminate the subject. Now you have so then this is important, from 2 meters to from 2 feet to 7.7 feet. Right now, you know, what's doing is, so the subject that I have is Tantrell Willis there, which we'll take a shot in a moment. So right now the flash knows that there is something, you know, the camera knows there is something in front of it, so it knows it's between 2 feet and 7 feet, and it also shows 28 millimeters at f8. That's what the lens and the camera is set at. So the lens is a zoom lens, is set at 28 millimeters and is at f8. I'm gonna change. You can see how when I change the aperture, it changes in the flash. So I'm just going to put it in 3.5. All lenses begin at least at 3.5. The professionals begin in less or wider aperture, but let's just use 3.5 for the purposes of this video. Okay, so let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the buttons and what each of them means. The most important thing is, you know, when you're going to have a menu and you have a mode. The mode is really what allows you to change the different types of modes in the flash. So as we talked before, TTL is the default. You know, it comes BLFP. If you don't want balanced light in the background, then it's just TL. By the way, it always shows FP because if you go into a very high shutter speed, then the FP will automatically activate the high-speed sync. Then, okay, so then you have aperture priority. So in other words, depending on the aperture you have, it'll determine the flash. I've never used this, okay? Then you have the same for the distance. So based on the distance, it will determine the best, you know, and again, this is another thing that I have never used. And then you have manual. Manual I have used. Manual is very important because manual is when the camera doesn't really know what you're illuminating, and you want to make the choices of you know, how much you want. 1:1 means that you have it at full blast. As you can see, it can go all the way up to 19 feet. Then 1/28, 2 feet. So you can see right here, 1/28, and it goes in increments. The lower the number, the higher the power, okay? So ironically, it works, well, actually, yeah, because it's really a fraction. So it's 1/16, 1/8 of power, 1/4 of power, 1/2 of power, and this is full power. Okay, so actually that's the best way to think of it. Manual is because sometimes, let's say you're using your flash to illuminate something in the background. Well, and let's say it's the wall, for example. Well, the flash doesn't know what you're trying to illuminate. So you want to have full control, and you use manual. The other reason to use manual is sometimes, you know, for professionals who use light meters, then you can use manual and you can set it up with your light meter. But again, this is a video for a tutorial for beginners. If somebody wants to go into a light meter and all that, you can go to some of my more advanced videos. Okay, so let's go back to the basics, okay? By the way, there is 2 green buttons here, and let's say I don't know, you did a bunch of changes and you don't know how to get it back to the default. If you press these 2 buttons and you leave it pressed, it basically resets it to the way it was originally, okay? Now, other things of the Speedlight that are important. So let's go around and see everything that the Speedlight has. You have the modes, so we saw that. You have a menu, so you have all these different options. Again, I don't touch any of this stuff. Really is not, unless you're doing something very advanced. Like for example, this is the repeat. So one flash triggers the other. You can put it on, you can put it off. Let's say you want to change the manual in increments of, you know, 1/3, advanced wireless. We'll talk a little bit about the, you know, the wireless. Right now it's on, it automatically changes from FX to DX, okay? You can also set the zoom for manual or just have it automatically. So I have it right now automatically. So not a lot here. Again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on things that I basically don't think you're going to use. So let's move on. Okay, so now let's see what else. Okay, so things that are important. I'm going to pause the video for a second. I'm going to take the flash off the hot shoe. Hello, my name is... So one of the things that let me pause for a second so I can show you something else about the flash. So the other thing is that you have here, for those of you that have the 900 or 910, it does show you some other things. It's on autofocus. So the front of the flash will basically use the autofocus function to know what is it that you're focusing on. Here it tells you how much battery you have left, okay? this little symbol here, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's that it's on the camera. This red button is important. This is what you use to test your flash to make sure that that it's working. I recommend that you push this button before you start using it, because obviously, you know, this is the best way to test it. Other things that you have is your flash could be put in remote mode or master mode. Remote means that you can control your flash wirelessly from your camera. I have a whole video on that in if you look at the YouTube, the commander mode and all that. And you can also use this flash as a master to control other flashes. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a picture of that trail. I close a little bit the curtains because the idea is that you would need flash. Otherwise, there will be no purpose for the video. By the way, whenever you don't have to use flash, you know, it's better. Flash is not something that you always need. It's something actually to help you in case you don't have enough light. So let's turn on the camera, okay? So let's see what settings I have here. I have 1/25 of a second, 3.5, 400 ISO, and I have the white balance in flash. I can put it in auto, which is fine, okay? In this case, I'm just using the flash so that you know that that's another option that you have. Why 1/25 of a second? Well, because if you're hand holding a camera, right, chances are that you want to, if you're using a zoom, and you have camera shake like me, you probably, to make sure that it's not out of focus or you don't get camera shake, you put it 1/25 of a second. Anyway, you know, for the, let's say somebody says, well, that's too much. Let's just put it in 1/80th of a second. You can see there is not enough exposure here anyway, okay? Now somebody may say, well, but you can do 1/800th of a second. Okay, so let's change it to 1/800th of a second. 1 second, I have to. By the way, you know, all these settings on your camera, as you know, they all depend on what lens you're using and the person that is using it. I mean, I have the tendency to move the camera a little bit when I take pictures, so I do need the help of having a higher shutter speed. Some of you may be better and may get away with using a lower shutter speed. The other thing is you have vibration reduction in some lenses, which helps you too. But you know, again, the purpose of the video is about the flash, not about how far you can take your flash. So let's continue with the next video. By the way, I said 1/800 of a second. What I meant was the ISO to 800. You know that with a lot of cameras, when you go to 800, you start seeing a lot of noise, especially in portraits. But you know, for the purposes of this video, let's just say you know, that you use ISO 800. So now let's put it in live view. Again, it's not my preferred mode, but for the purposes of this video, it's easier to show it to you this way. So let's take a shot. Obviously, there is not enough light. So time to turn on the flash. Okay, so as we talked about before, it has all the settings of the camera. It knows that it's a DX zoom, ISO 800, 28 millimeters, 3.5. So now, if you remember before, the settings were different. When I was showing you the buttons, I think the ISO was at 200. That's what I had the camera originally at, but as we change all the settings in the camera, what's interesting is that it does it automatically also in the flash. We're gonna let the camera do the work, okay? And there you go. Perfectly exposed. as we would expect, you know, from your TTL mode. So now let's try other things so that you can see what other things you can do with this flash. Let's, for example, put the, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the bounce card. So I'm gonna, this is something that I find very useful. So now let's take a picture with a bounce card and see how different it looks. Okay. Okay, and let's see, maybe you don't notice much of a difference, but there is. You see, this is before, and this is now. So what the bounce card did actually is it gave you better light to the background, because it's, now the light is bouncing from the bounce card, I mean from the, from the card, and you get more light. It's not so zoomed in into the trail. So one more thing that I want to try, which a lot of people do, is I'm going to point it now to the ceiling. Okay, a lot of people do this too. So let's see what we get now when we use. So what happens with that is beautiful light of everything in the background, but unfortunately you cannot see the face anymore. If you notice the previous picture, look at the previous picture. You see, you can see the face. Here you can see the face. So let me pause here for a second. So one of the big issues whenever you do the flash directly and not bounce it is you get these, they're called like hot spots. You see over here, you cannot even tell that this is an orange. I mean, that's how bad it is. Imagine if this were the face of a person. I mean, it would be horrible. Here you can see the same thing. I mean, it's so harsh that it's hard to see, you know, the features in the face. Okay. And more, but maybe too much light in the face, which is not a pleasant look. So that's why you want to. Here you can see how the light is very even. The orange you can see perfectly, you know, lit. So this is the preferred way. I encourage you to put the, you know, the flash like at 45 degrees. You can put the diffuser. I'll show you later what the diffuser is. That softens the light even more. Bounce it, and this is no light at all. So those are basically the basic functions of the flash. You know, there is other things that are you can do with a flash. You can actually change if you want more light or less light. The camera, of course, is intelligent, but sometimes it's subjective. Sometimes there's people who like less light and want, you know, to, let's call it, underexposed by a third or more of a stop, and it will give you a different look. Okay, so we're 18 minutes into the video. I'll show you one last thing, and then I'll show you in the manual, you know, where the buttons are for the SB-600 and 700. So I took the flash off so I can show you some other things. The flash comes with, you know, with several accessories. This is a diffuser. The diffuser, you can just put it on here. And what is the diffuser good for? Well, if you don't want the flash to directly, let's say it's going directly to the, by the way, when you do this, you can see it wasn't locked correctly. So here it's locked, okay? The diffuser is what you use when you're doing portraits, because you don't want the flash directly into the face, you know. As a matter of fact, the best thing to do when you're shooting portraits is to put the flash this way. And that's even better because then the flash doesn't hit directly on the subject. Now let me show you a couple of things that are inside this flash that are also useful. This is another diffuser. So this is what is called a bounce. So this is the bounce card that we used before. The diffuser is when you use the bounce card, you cannot put the dome, so you have to use this diffuser. By the way, once you use the diffusers, then the zoom function doesn't work as well. I didn't talk too much about the zoom, but when you put the zoom, you can actually override what the camera has. And let's say you only wanted to light on this object and you don't want light on the rest, you can zoom it very tight. You can put like 200 millimeters and or even more, and it will, depending on the capability of the flash, and it will only imagine that it's a very, very narrow light, and it would only lit the subject here. Okay, so card. So the bounce card, basically when the flash when it flashes, and I'm going to turn it on for a second so I can show you. I'm not going to flash it directly in your face, but I just want to show you. By the way, you can do this with the diffuser or without the diffuser. Okay, without the let's do it first without the diffuser. Just the bounce card. Okay, so what's going to do, I'm just going to press this button here. This button automatically allows me to trigger the flash. So what's going to do, and I'm going to actually put it towards the trail. Okay. So when I do that, so you see the flash, it bounced through here. So imagine that this is on top of the camera and you have somebody. So anyway, you saw the demonstration of the pictures. The other accessory has gels. You can play with the gels. I don't do a lot with gels, but there is a video that I have where I have used them in the past. They can be fun. What I want to do instead is I want to show you for the different flashes, okay, where these buttons are. So for the SB-600 is a very basic flash, and basically the most important thing that we talked about were the different modes where you can go to TTL and use the balance light or just the basic TTL and manual. And then you have here the zoom, which I talked to you about before, that you can manually override what the camera does. Okay, then in the so this is the SB-700. In the SB-700, okay, you have here the different modes, TTL-BL, TTL-BL-FP, and you also have the manual settings. Okay, one of the things about the, oh sorry, this is the SB-900. No wonder why it didn't look, why it looks so familiar. Okay, sorry, I apologize. This is the SB-700. By the way, for beginners, this is a great flash because it makes everything so easy. They actually did the SB-900 before they did the SB-700. I guess they got a lot of unfavorable comments on the, how complex the 600 was and the 900, and they made things a lot easier with the 700. So you have here that, you can just move this button here and go from TTL to manual. Okay, this makes it very easy. Here you can go through the menu. Okay, and you have the remote mode, the master, and actually, something that that is also complicated to do with the other flashes, but here they make it very easy. So remember I told you about that zoom? So here you can make it, very narrow or very wide. So I love the SB-700. The reason why eventually I sold it and bought the SB-910 is because I needed more power, because I use my Speedlights, to do a lot of shoots with models on the beach and so on, as you probably have seen in some of my pictures, and I just needed more power from the flash. So I think this is the conclusion of this video. We're almost in the 25-minute mark. Again, this is the basics, the tutorial, so that you're not, for those of you that are a little bit intimidated by these Speedlights. By the way, they call it Speedlights. I have no idea. Maybe it's because You can shoot in very high speeds, and that's why they call it like that. It's basically a flash. What I don't recommend as you get more advanced is to use the pop-up flash. The pop-up flash, remember when I show you that picture of that flash right on the face? The pop-up flash, first of all, is very small. It has very little power, and most importantly, you can't move it. So all these things that we showed about bouncing, and you can actually even turn it. You can do all sorts of things. You can bounce it from the back of the wall. There is many techniques. You'll see some people that do some real fancy things. For the most part, I put it 45 degrees and I use the bounce card. I do have a lot of different diffusing tools that I use with my Speedlight. That's something going to be a tutorial that I'm going to do separately. I'm going to show you everything that I have. At one point I was buying everything that came out, and I'll show you what I do really use and what I should probably sell and don't use. So hopefully you don't waste your money like I did with some of these diffuser domes. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed the video, that you find it useful. Take advantage of the comments. I do read the comments all the time, and I try to reply to all of them when you have questions. If I see there is a lot of questions and need to be addressed in a separate video, then I'll be more than happy to do that. Thank you.